Ladies and gentlemen, most people lose their power because they can't sit in silence. They feel the need to prove, to respond, to explain themselves every step of the way. But when you're truly locked into your purpose, you start to realize your growth doesn't need to be announced. The real wins happen in silence. The transformation that lasts is the one that takes root in private. There's a kind of strength that only comes when you stop needing validation, when you no longer care if they understand your journey. That's the beginning of a different kind of focus, because when you make a decision to focus on you, truly focus, something in you changes. You no longer feel the urge to broadcast every step of your healing, every detail of your plan, or every setback you encounter. You start recognizing that not everyone watching is cheering. Some are waiting for your fall, and others can't comprehend the level of discipline it takes to rebuild from within. So you start holding back not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You understand that your progress doesn't require applause. It requires alignment. You begin to protect your peace like a treasure. You learn to move in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you've finally realized the value of privacy in a noisy world. Your silence becomes your focus, and your focus becomes your fuel. You start speaking less and doing more. And that shift, when it happens, it's powerful, because now you're not looking around, you're looking within. You're not competing with them, you're competing with yesterday's version of you. That's how real transformation begins. The people who win at the highest level aren't the loudest. They're not the ones always talking about what they're going to do. They're the ones building in silence while everyone else is busy showing off. They know how to disappear and work, how to separate and evolve, how to shut out the noise so they can hear the whispers of purpose. And when they reappear, they don't need to say a word. Their results do all the talking. You don't need to announce your next move. You don't need to prove your worth to people who overlooked you. You don't even need revenge. What you need is silence, discipline, and a relentless focus on who you're becoming. Because when you master the art of silent progress, you become untouchable. People won't know what you're up to until it's too late to stop you. And by the time they notice, the version of you they thought they could limit, it will no longer exist. The moment you stop explaining and start evolving, you begin to rise. When you decide to focus on yourself, one of the first and hardest lessons you'll learn is that not everyone can go where you're headed. And the reason many people stay stuck is because they keep trying to drag everyone with them. They want to heal and help at the same time. But growth doesn't work that way. You can't elevate while holding hands with people who are committed to staying the same. Sometimes your evolution requires separation. You've got to understand. This isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about being better than who you used to be. But if the environment you're in keeps pulling you back into your old patterns, then silence isn't just a choice. It's a necessity. You can't grow in a room where you're always defending your dreams. You can't bloom in soil that doesn't nourish your vision. That's why the deeper your focus becomes, the more distance you'll create. Not because you're running from people, but because you're running toward your purpose. Some people won't understand your silence, your new boundaries, or your quiet determination. They'll say you've changed. And they're right. You have. Because transformation demands a shedding. It requires you to walk away from comfort, approval, and anything that disturbs your inner clarity. And you don't have to explain that to anyone. You don't owe an apology for wanting more, for thinking higher, or for refusing to settle where you used to survive. Some connections are seasonal. Some conversations are distractions. And some people were only meant to be part of your journey, not your destination. There's a sacred kind of strength in walking alone when necessary. It's in those silent seasons, those isolated moments, where clarity sharpens and purpose speaks louder than noise. You realize the solitude wasn't a punishment. It was preparation. It was molding you in ways the crowd never could. You start to love your own company. You start to recognize your own voice. And in that silence, something powerful begins to awaken. Not everyone will clap for your growth. Not everyone will cheer for your decisions. But that's not your business. Your business is your focus. Your responsibility is your own evolution. And if that means letting go of people, places, and habits that no longer serve who you're becoming, then let them go, with grace, but without hesitation. Because at the end of the day, your life isn't about how many people stayed with you. It's about how far you were willing to go for the version of you were created to become. Success doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to discipline. And most people don't lose because they're not talented. They lose because they lack the consistency to carry out the work when no one is watching. Discipline is what bridges the gap between your potential and your results. It's not about how motivated you feel, because motivation fades. It's about how deeply you're committed to showing up, over and over, regardless of how you feel. You've got to get to a place where your focus becomes stronger than your feelings, where your routine becomes your refuge. That means waking up when you don't feel like it. That means sticking to the plan even when distractions show up dressed as opportunities. That means doing the hard things in silence, because you understand that discipline is a private contract between you and your destiny. No one else needs to approve it. No one else needs to see it. You just have to keep signing it with your actions. See, discipline is not punishment, it's a form of love. Self-love. It's telling yourself, I deserve more than temporary comfort. I deserve long-term transformation. And so, you choose the gym over the couch. You choose the study session over the scroll. You choose the goal over the gossip. Not because it's easy, but because the version of you that wins requires you to be different. And if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll stay trapped in the life you've always had. People think discipline is restrictive, but the truth is, it sets you free. It frees you from regret. It frees you from excuse. It frees you from the chaos of constantly starting over. When you're disciplined, you walk differently. You speak with conviction. You move with authority because you're not waiting for life to happen. You're creating it, one deliberate decision at a time. You've got to understand, your dream is counting on your discipline. Your future family, your legacy, your healing, they're all attached to your ability to stay focused when everything around you says quit. That's why you train your mind, you guard your time, and you feed your purpose daily. Because the cost of being average is too high. And the price of greatness is paid in sweat, sacrifice, and silence. No one will clap for you while you're building. That applause comes later. Right now, your reward is in the discipline itself. Because when you're consistent in the dark, you're preparing to shine in the light. Everybody wants to be seen winning, but few are willing to be invisible while they build. The process of transformation demands your solitude. It demands that you separate yourself, not out of arrogance, but out of intention. You cannot elevate your life while clinging to the noise of the crowd. Growth requires focus, and focus cannot survive in an environment filled with constant opinions, comparisons, and distractions. Sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's not that you don't have something to say. It's that what you're building is louder than any conversation you could have right now. When you're focused on your assignment, your energy becomes sacred. You no longer have time to explain yourself to people who don't see your vision. You no longer have the emotional bandwidth to defend your decisions to those still living in cycles you've outgrown. Silence becomes your shield, not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting what's still forming. You see, when you learn to stay silent and work, you develop power, real power, the kind of power that's not validated by applause or approval, the kind that's rooted in discipline and clarity. You begin to realize that the loudest person in the room is often the most unsure. But the one who observes, the one who listens, the one who works in silence, they are the ones who are truly dangerous. Because their moves aren't predictable, their next step isn't obvious. They don't advertise their grind. They reveal their results. In a world addicted to attention, staying silent is an act of rebellion. It's refusing to perform for people who don't matter. It's choosing peace over popularity, and in that silence, you hear what really matters. You hear your purpose calling louder than the distractions. You hear your inner voice guiding you towards something greater. You hear clarity, because clarity doesn't compete with noise. It lives in stillness. People will wonder where you went. Let them wonder. People will ask why you've changed. Let them ask. Your job is not to be understood. Your job is to become unrecognizable to the version of yourself that kept playing small. And that process happens when you step back, tune out the chaos, and give your full attention to becoming. Focus is fragile. Protect it. Don't let temporary people pull you away from eternal purpose. You weren't born to be available to everyone. You were born to be aligned with something that matters. And sometimes, to find that alignment, you have to disappear, not to escape life, but to rebuild one. The silence of transformation is loud enough to change your future forever. One of the most powerful things you can do in your life is protect your energy with fierce intention. Because when you're focused on winning, when you're building something greater than yourself, you can't afford to be careless with who gets access to you. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your transformation. Not everyone should be allowed into the sacred space where you're fighting battles, confronting your weaknesses, and forging a new version of yourself. You must understand energy is currency, and some people are emotional debt collectors. They show up not to support you, but to drain you. They come with drama, negativity, gossip, confusion. And if you're not careful, they'll bankrupt your spirit before you ever step into your breakthrough. That's why focus demands boundaries. You've got to guard your environment like your future depends on it, because it does. You don't owe people access to your peace. You don't owe them explanations for your silence. You don't have to prove your loyalty by sacrificing your growth. There comes a point when you have to say, "I love you, but I can't lower my frequency just to stay connected." That's not disrespect. That's self-respect. That's honoring the call on your life above the comfort of familiar relationships. The truth is, everyone can't go with you. And that's okay. Your future isn't a group project. There will be seasons where God separates you, not to punish you, but to protect what He's developing in you. And in that separation, you'll find a deeper strength. You'll discover that peace is power, that clarity is more valuable than constant company, that sometimes elevation requires isolation. You see, the version of you that's ready to win can't be surrounded by people still addicted to losing. You can't stay in rooms where your vision is too big for the atmosphere. You can't keep shrinking just to make others comfortable. You weren't created to blend in, you were born to break patterns. And that means you've got to walk away from anything that threatens your focus, your peace, your momentum. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Every minute spent explaining yourself to people who don't get it is a minute stolen from your purpose. Every conversation rooted in negativity is a seed of doubt planted in your spirit. And you've come too far, fought too hard, to let the wrong energy delay what you've been designed to build. So protect your energy like it's your legacy, because it is. And the world doesn't need a version of you that's drained, distracted, and defeated. It needs the version of you that's fully alive, fully locked in, and completely unapologetic about guarding what matters most. Winning isn't something that happens just because you want it. It's not something you stumble into by accident. Winning is a lifestyle. It's a decision you make every single day before the sun even rises. It's a commitment to become the kind of person who doesn't need applause, who doesn't chase validation, who doesn't fold when life starts applying pressure. Because let me tell you something, pressure reveals what's real. It doesn't create your character, it exposes it. And when you're focused on winning, you welcome that pressure. You let it mold you, shape you, discipline you. You let it teach you to stay steady, even when everything around you is shaking. You don't win by waiting for the perfect opportunity. You win by preparing in silence, when no one is watching. You win by being consistent in private, by mastering your habits, by choosing growth over comfort, clarity over confusion, and peace over popularity. That's where the real battle is fought, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. In the gym when your body's tired, at the desk when your mind wants to quit, in the quiet hours when your dreams feel far and your fears feel loud. That's when the winner in you is either developed or destroyed. You see, every level of your life will demand a stronger version of you. Not just physically stronger, mentally stronger, emotionally grounded, spiritually rooted, focused, disciplined, unshakable, and that kind of strength doesn't come from noise. It comes from silence. It comes from doing the work no one else sees, from refusing to let temporary emotions make permanent decisions, from saying, "No, I won't settle here. I've got too much purpose ahead of me." Because the truth is, most people talk more than they build. They post more than they prepare. They dream more than they develop. But not you. You're different. You're building brick by brick. You're laying a foundation that storms won't shake. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't just chase success. You embody it. You represent it in how you move, how you think, how you respond, how you show up even when it's hard. So don't look for shortcuts. Don't beg for approval. Don't waste time explaining your grind to people who aren't qualified to understand your assignment. Stay focused on the mission. Stay consistent in the process. And when it's time, when the moment comes, you won't need to announce your win. Your results will speak so loud, they won't be able to ignore you. Because when your life becomes the evidence of your discipline, your silence becomes the loudest thing in the room.